This is the Paul Finebaum Show, supplemented by Aflac.
We welcome you back. Great to have everyone here. Final 2 hours, and it also gives us great pleasure to welcome back to the program Phillip Stutts, who has been with us so many times, especially when we were in New York. He was a frequent drop by, and we've talked to him, of course, during the pandemic. Phillip, first of all, great to have you back, and I hope all is well. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, I'm great. Surviving the flood in the Panhandle of Florida right now.
Yeah,
otherwise great.
Yeah, it has begun, although it has not arrived. I'm sure it feels like it. So be careful and be safe. Let's number of things going on. There was another hearing in the Senate today. There's so much conversation about the intersection of politics and sports. It's simply unavoidable. First of all, what did happen in the Senate today? I know you and I have talked so often about NIL.
I watched all 2 hours and 15 minutes, so no one listening right now has to, of the hearing today. And it was not riveting at all. But the headline that I'm already seeing out of this is, and this is the sort of the media's attention-grabbing headline, which is they made news by a couple of people announcing they want to restrict coaching salaries, which has nothing to do with NIL. And I would just warn everybody that is a huge diversion and a media clickbait. Really, they focused on sort of the name, image, and likeness. This is the Senate Education Committee. I'm going to try to keep this real easy and simple. This is not the committee in the Senate that will decide anything. They are going to make some recommendations. The senator that led that today was Lamar Alexander, who was the former president of the University of Tennessee, a Vandy alum. And he was very adamant in his personal recommendations that he doesn't believe it's fair for a few athletes to get paid. Most will not get paid under the name, image, and likeness, a policy that's being discussed and debated. And he believes that money should be pooled. So any athlete that makes money on their name, image, and likeness should pool that money, and it should be distributed evenly to all the athletes at that school. If the athlete doesn't want to pool their money, then they should basically go pro. And so that was the main crux of sort of the Republican side. The Democratic side, there's a bill in the Senate right now that's sort of the Senate or the NIL Bill of Rights. It's being proposed by 10 U.S. senators, all Democrats, including Vice Presidential candidate Kamala Harris. This is a much more government interventionist approach. I think I'd bore everybody to death if I went through the specifics of it. But just know that once the government gets their hands on a policy, it is sure to be screwed up. And everybody is trying to position themselves right now to make news, to be on the forefront of this. And I'm not sure what the end product is going to be. I do know that this is a massive, massive disruption into college football, especially when you add the economic impact of the coronavirus, where billions of dollars are going to be lost this year. And then you add in NIL, which has to be in place by July of 2021. There's no way around it. I've told you this a year ago when I was in studio with you. There is a nuclear bomb that is going to be dropped on college football. This is happening right now. And the deadline on this is around July 2021.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Phillip, for watching it for all of us, because anyone who's ever been inside that Senate, any of those Senate rooms, or inside anywhere, it is in your debt. Let me move to something else, because it is happening as we speak, or we think it's happening as we speak, and that's the decision by the Big Ten. On surface, this would not necessarily prompt a political question, but it's unavoidable considering the President of the United States has been actively urging the Big Ten to come back. Assuming they do, does it trickle down into the presidential race?
Well, it already has, and you make a really good point. Trump has already gotten involved. They see this as a total winning issue. Paul, my company has done a massive deep dive into what Americans are thinking about the economy and the virus itself. We've basically modeled and interviewed and looked at 200 million Americans to understand how they feel about this. What we are increasingly seeing over the last 6 weeks is that Americans have come to the realization that certain people are more negatively affected by the coronavirus than others. They have come to accept their fate. Americans have, to know that if they take chances, they have that responsibility. And why that's important is that people are starting to be less scared, more accepting, and so they don't understand why these conferences, whether it's the Pac-10 or the Big Ten, are holding out and not getting back to play. And so the Trump team probably sees this. I'm not going to speak for them, but they probably sees this and knows that voters want the distraction of sports right now. They know that younger athletes can be infected, but literally no one is going to the hospital. And they're like, come on, is it common sense to kick in and let's get to play? And the president has brought this to the forefront, and it's a smart and shrewd political move.
And, I mean, we're talking about critical parts of the country, too. I realize, and for those who don't know Phillip, he does a lot of things. He spends a lot of time, or has spent a lot of time before the advent of his company, doing political consulting. On the other hand, as I say that, you've got some presidents in the Big Ten who are just adamant about not wanting to give in. What's going to happen if the Big Ten comes back? What are they going to say then?
Is there any more overt that we did this for economic reasons? You look at the model that Greg Sankey used at the SEC, which is a wait-and-see approach, which was thought out. But ultimately, the Big Ten, the Pac-10 did something. They decided they needed to not fight the political infrastructure in their states, and I would say 80% of the reason they did it was to avoid lawsuits. That the lawyers had gotten involved, and this was a pure play to say, oh my God, we don't want to be sued. And it's so that they come back. It feels like, I'm not a lawyer, but it does feel like that their hypocrisy will be shown.
Talking to Phillip Stutts, the founder and CEO of Win Big Media. Generally, before you go, Phillip, I know you've written a lot about this, and that's the wokeness of everything we do, including the sports media. And we just went through the first NFL weekend. I haven't really been able to compute what it all means. It seems like a lot of people were watching some games, a lot of people were not watching other games in relation to maybe a year ago or 5 years ago. What impact, if any, has the conversation by the NFL in particular had on awareness and interest in the game?
It's a really good question. This is not injecting an opinion. We went out and spent a ton of money to understand what American consumers wanted in sports when it came back in June. And what we found was 87 to 92% of all Americans across all demographics and all races did not want athletes coming out and talking about politics or wokeness. And the reason being is that people had been locked in their homes for months. They wanted to watch sports. They were dying to watch sports. But they didn't want to be lectured to by a millennial athlete or a Gen Z athlete. They just want to watch sports and forget about life for a while. Everybody is under a lot of stress, one way or the other. And sports has always been an outlet in this country for people to come together and escape reality. And now that reality has seeped into sports. And the majority of Americans, the vast majority of Americans, would rather just watch sports and forget about life for a while and high-five their friends, whether they're white, black, Hispanic, or whatever. They just want to come together. They don't want to be divisive. And so it is, the only thing I can tell you is I reported on this data in June and July, and then the ratings came back, and they have not been good. Will they come back? I hope so. And I hope that players and coaches and owners see that this is negatively impacting the way fans want to see. And ultimately, we have been under lockdown for so long, and we were under lockdown for so long without sports, Paul, that people just said, I haven't watched sports, so I'm not going to watch sports anymore. They changed their behaviors because of the lockdown and the lack of sports. And when sports came back, and it didn't come back in the form that made them feel safe and secure and certain, they turned it off. And that's what we're seeing across the board.
And Phillip, this is a tricky path I'm going down, but that's never stopped me before. But you're hearing commentators reference it. I understand that they are there to talk about the game, but they're broadening their reporting and narration of the game considerably. Would you not agree?
Everybody, every time I've turned on a game, I have heard, whether it's the reporters, the sports broadcasters of the game, bring up something in reference to what is going on in society right now. People have the right to do that, Paul, and they are expressing their right now. Consumers have the right to turn off that TV if it annoys them enough. And I would tell you that the reference I see is you have a lot of sports fans out there that feel like they can't speak up because they don't feel like they're racist. They don't feel like they harbor injustices against anybody, but they feel like if they say that, they're going to be, they're going to be canceled. And ultimately, they've just I made the comparison. Donald Trump in 2016 in the key states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania was not polling and was not winning in the polling going into Election Day. And the silent majority came back and voted in those critical states and put him over the top. Sports fans are doing the same thing right now by turning off sports because they don't want to hear it. Will that change? I hope so. I really do. I hope we can just go back to the games, but that's what we're seeing across the board within the data.
Fantastic stuff from Phillip Stutts, as always. Phillip, thank you. Be well. Be careful during the next couple of hours as that hurricane bears down exactly where you are right now. Come back soon.
Thank you.
You got it. It is rough if you just look at a map, and it is frightening to see what the hurricane is doing to the Gulf Coast. We'll take a break. More to come as we continue here on a Tuesday afternoon.